I woke up to a rumor that XRP supply could vanish overnight. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it sounded a bit like clickbait, but even after all of these years in crypto, this one had me doing a bit of a double take. For context, I'm a seasoned XRP holder. I've held through the kind of roller coaster, the bull runs, the crashes, the big lawsuit. So I don't spook easily. But when a well-respected voice in our community claimed that XRP's circulating supply is way lower than everyone actually thinks and could practically collapse overnight, I had to know, is there actual truth to this or just another wild crypto theory? So by the end of this video, you're going to see why I went from skeptical to, well, honestly, a little bit hyped. And trust me here, you're going to want to stick around because the implications here might just reshape how you see XRP's future. Now, I'm going to level with you. For the longest time, I thought XRP's biggest weakness was its huge supply, 100 billion tokens total, with something like 50-60 billion already out there, right? And I'd hear people say, oh, XRP will never hit double digits. The supply is just too large. And honestly, I kind of bought that argument. I mean, compared to a coin like BNB, which only has around about 139 million coins out there, hence BNB's price could be hundreds of dollars, XRP having tens of billions of tokens seemed like a built-in cap. It's kind of basic economics, right? If there's tens or at least ton I shed off something, each unit should be worth less, right? So picture my confusion when I see a post from Versan 𝗗𝗗𝗄𝗗. Now he is the co-founder of Black Swan Capitalist and a pretty respected guy in XRP circles, saying essentially that the circulating supply of XRP is much lower than people think, and that once certain factors kick in, the available supply could basically fall off of a cliff overnight. Now, my first reaction to this was there's just no way. How could that be? Did half the supply get eaten up by aliens or something equally as crazy? Obviously not, right? But I couldn't just scroll past that, right? I had to investigate. I pulled up the data myself. The first stop, CoinMarketCap. Now it showed around 59.6 billion XRP as the circulating supply. Okay, so that's a lot of XRP, but nothing new there. Next, I checked the XRPScan, an XRP Ledger Explorer. XRPScan's number was about 64.7 billion tokens in circulation. Well, that's actually higher than what's on CoinMarketCap or what CoinMarketCap even said. Now, I'm scratching my head there. Why does one source say 59 billion and another one say 64 billion? So for a moment, I kind of felt like it was a total mess. Like, if we can't even pin down the circulating supply, what on earth is actually going on? Then it clicked. Different sources count things differently. XRPScan will likely already count certain locked or escrow tokens as in circulation, whereas CoinMarketCap might not. And that is when I kind of remembered what 𝗗𝗗𝗄𝗗 was actually hinting at. See, Ripple, that's the company, still holds a chunk of XRP in escrow, about 35.3 billion XRP, locked up across multiple wallets. Now, those escrowed coins release on a schedule. It's about 1 billion per month, with unusual kind of portions actually going back into escrow, right? Now, the key point here is that those 35 billion XRP, they aren't actually sitting on exchanges. They're not actually available to me or to you, today, or at least to buy today if you really wanted to. Now, for all intents and purposes here, that escrow stash is effectively off of the market. Now, consider this. Big institutions, like banks, fintech companies, and maybe even central banks experimenting, now could also be holding large blocks of XRP that they aren't actually actively trading. Maybe they're using it internally or just kind of waiting on regulatory clarity and a bit more of it. 𝗗𝗗𝗄𝗗's point here is that if you kind of take out those escrow holdings and these whale stashes, well, the effective circulating supply, the XRP actually out in the wild, changing hands, is actually way smaller than the 59 or even 64 billion figure. Now, how much smaller? Well, we don't know the exact number, but it could be shockingly low. Now, I've seen community members guesstimate maybe only about 20 or 30 billion XRP are truly liquid in the market. Now, I remember leaning back in my chair and going, letting all of that kind of sink right in, because XRP is not so different from Bitcoin in one sense, right? There may be a lot created in total, but much of it is locked up, lost, or even being hodled long term. So here I am, piecing this together and thinking, all right, if there's maybe only, let's say, 25 billion XRP freely trading, and I always kind of assumed that it was 60 billion, then that actually does change things, doesn't it? It's kind of like thinking that your gas tank is full and then realizing maybe it's actually only half full or half empty, depending on your perspective of things. Now, you're going to adjust your road trip plans accordingly, aren't you? Now, you might be thinking, why does that matter? 2 words, really: supply shock. Now, if you've taken Econ 101 or just watched a few crypto markets, you already know price is a dance between the supply and the demand. So if demand suddenly kind of spikes and supply can't keep up, well, prices tend to shoot on up, sometimes violently. Now, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋 and a lot of other XRP folk have been buzzing about a potential XRP supply shock for this very reason. Now, the idea is that at some point, something triggers a massive wave of demand for XRP, and the market finds that there isn't enough XRP readily available. Not just retail FOMO, so think bigger. Think institutions, enterprises, maybe even governments could suddenly need XRP for large-scale operations. So, what could trigger such insane demand? Well, this is the exciting part. We're in the very early stages of something huge in finance: tokenization of real-world assets. Now, I'm talking about, taking things like your debt instruments, your fiat currencies via stablecoins, of course, or CBDCs, right? Or even maybe commodities like gold, and putting them on a blockchain so that they can move around more effectively or efficiently, ultimately. And here's the kicker. Now, a lot of people, myself included, suspect that the XRP ledger, the XRPL for those who are new, is actually aiming to be the settlement layer for all of those tokenized assets. In fact, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋 specifically mentions tokenized debt, stablecoins, and gold as likely drivers for future XRP demand. So just imagine trillions of dollars in value being settled on the XRPL. XRP would be the grease in the wheels, i.e. the bridge asset facilitating all of those transactions. Even Ripple's own CTO, David Schwartz, has hinted at this direction. Back in 2023, Schwartz said that the XRPL was pivoting to handle tokenized assets. When one of your kind of architects of the XRP says something like that, you kind of pay attention. And it's not just Ripple's team talking here. A recent report from Bitwise, this is a big crypto asset manager, basically put XRPL in the race for tokenization supremacy. Now, Bitwise even noted that buying XRP is probably one of the best ways to actually invest in the tokenization trend. So just think about that. An institutional firm suggesting that XRP as a top player for the future of finance. Now, that's a far cry from when XRP was just known for fast cross-border payments. Now, if XRPL really does become a backbone for, let's say, global stablecoins or tokenized kind of gold trades, the demand for XRP could go through the roof. And here is where it all clicks. If that demand surge hits, we already established that the supply of XRP on the open market might not be as plentiful as everyone has assumed. Now, you would have big players scrambling to buy XRP, but only a limited amount actually floating around. Now, basic supply and demand says what? Well, price must go bonanza, right? 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋 colorfully kind of says that circulating supply could collapse overnight. His words, not mine. Now, I visualize it kind of as waking up to find exchanges practically out of XRP because so much got scooped up for institutional use, right? One day you see billions of XRP available, and the next day, poof, hardly any to sell orders are actually left. Not because the XRP was destroyed, but because nobody is actually selling it, right? They need it for new tokenized economy plumbing. Now, I know it sounds a little bit like a fairy tale for us XRP holders. Trust me, I'm tempering my excitement with a healthy dose of reality. Right? A lot of things do have to go right for this scenario to play out. XRPL needs to actually win that tokenization game, beat out other blockchains and platforms, and achieve wider adoption. That's a kind of big if. Now, I'm not about to kind of sit here and say, it's definitely happening, time to remortgage the house and buy XRP. No. We've all seen plenty of crypto promises fizzle out before they even fulfill their destiny. And speaking of promises, I need to slip in an important reality check right here. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your own responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. We had to do it. Now, on a related note, if you are as deep into this stuff as I am, then you might want a place to kind of talk it through with others. Now, we actually do have a free educational Discord server. The link is in the description below. It's a friendly spot where we chat about these theories just like this one, share our research, and help each other navigate the crypto world, minus all the toxic kind of Twitter drama. So consider this your invite. I'd love to see you in there. Also, quick heads up, I've put some affiliate links in the description for crypto exchanges that I personally use, and at least to trade and store some of my coins. So if you'll find things like the Blowfin link or the BitGet link down there. And if you're looking for a reliable place to buy or trade XRP or any other crypto asset, then check them out. Using those links is totally optional, of course, but if you do, you should know that they are affiliate links that support the channel here, and it doesn't cost you anything extra to go ahead and use them. And it does genuinely help me keep this content coming. So if you could go ahead and use them, big thank you in advance for anyone who uses those links down in the description. Anyway, let's get back to the story. By now, I'm sitting at my desk, eyes wide, just visualizing this scenario. Right? As a long-term XRP holder, it almost feels like vindication, right? Back in the day, heck, even just a year or two ago, if someone had said that XRP might face a supply crisis because too many people want it, well, I probably would have laughed it off, right? This is, at least this was the coin famous for its oversupply, right? We joked it would take 1,000 years for a coin to burn, for the coin's burn mechanisms, I guess, for XRP to even go to the moon. The script has actually totally flipped right now. And I remember back in 2018, during the last big kind of bullish run, there was the kind of meme theory that XRP would hit $589. Yeah, that was a thing, right? Everyone kind of mocked it, myself included, because it seemed mathematically impossible given the supply. Spoiler. XRP obviously never got anywhere near that target back then. Fast forward to now though, XRP is sitting above $3 with a market cap north of around $180 billion. And serious people are arguing that it might actually just be the start of a supply squeeze if that kicks on in, right? Now, if you told 2018 me about all of this, I probably would have just checked your temperature through fear of a fever. But let's kind of throw a real world analogy in here because it really kind of paints the picture. Think of XRP like tickets to a hugely anticipated concert. At first, you hear there are 100,000 tickets, so you figure there's plenty, right? Tickets will be cheap, surely. But then you find out that 50,000 of those tickets are held by the promoter. That's Ripple's escrow, by the way. And another 30,000 were quietly bought up by big companies for their VIP clients. Well, that's like institutions holding XRP. Suddenly, only 20,000 tickets are actually out there in public. Now, imagine 1 million people deciding that they want to go to this concert last minute. Good luck, right? Well, there are only 20,000 tickets out there. What do you think would happen? Right? Prices would explode. People would pay crazy markups just to get on in. And that is basically XRP in a nutshell, or at least this scenario in a nutshell. Look, here's another way to look at it, right? You know how Bitcoin has halving events that kind of cut the rate of new BTC in, half every 4 years or so? Well, those often precede bullish runs, right? Because the supply gets, at least the supply side, I should say, gets even tighter over time. Well, XRP's version of a halving could actually be the adoption event, right? Now, it's not a coded protocol event, right? Not like the Bitcoin halving, but a sudden widespread use that effectively locks up a huge chunk of XRP supply. It's not scheduled, it's not predictable like Bitcoin's halving, but it could happen whenever, right? And let's say a couple of major governments or banks decide to hold tons of XRP for their needs. It would feel like an overnight supply cut. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room. This is all just pure hype, right? Is it? I get that, right? Because it sounds like hype, but I would call it educated excitement, right? There's a difference between someone randomly tweeting XRP to $1,000 tomorrow and laying out a scenario where real utility drives up demand and price. Now, as someone who's been around the block, I normally kind of tune out the kind of baseless moon boy stuff. But when I see a tangible development, big finance experimenting with blockchain, tokenization becoming a real trend, Ripple making quiet moves in the background, well, my gut tells me that this isn't just fantasy, and that it may not play out exactly like a dream scenario, and certainly not likely to happen overnight. But it's not coming out of thin air either. And it's not just Versan 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱 out there with this wild idea. Other respected voices in the XRP community have echoed similar thoughts, that a supply shock could be on the horizon as XRP's utility kicks into high gear. Now, it's becoming a bit more of a theme. The narrative is shifting from there's too much XRP, the price can't go up, to actually, there might not be enough XRP when the world really wants it. What's an irony kind of right there, right? Now, I want to share how this new perspective has hit me personally. Right, being a long-term holder, I've had moments of doubt. I've wondered if I was crazy for clinging on to my XRP through the dark times. But digging into this supply shock idea and seeing evidence that it's not so far-fetched has actually reignited the excitement that I had back in the early days. It gave me a fresh reminder of why I bet on XRP. Maybe we weren't fools to hold on. Maybe we were just early. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's guaranteed to pay off, of course, but it does mean that the big vision is still very much alive. Now, of course, I'm not saying that all of this will definitely happen. We can't predict the future. Maybe tokenization takes off on some other platform. Or maybe it all just unfolds more slowly than expected. And even if a supply shock scenario comes true, who knows what the price will actually reach, or at least where that price will go. Anyway, I'm not going to throw out any kind of crazy price targets here today. Like, this isn't a guaranteed lottery ticket. There are no investments ever are. But the reason that I'm telling you this story today is because it challenged one of the long-term and long-held beliefs that XRP's supply would hold it back, and it got me excited about XRP's potential all over again. Now, it opened my eyes to a scenario that I hadn't seriously considered before. So, could XRP's circulating supply really collapse overnight due to a surge in demand? In my opinion, under the right conditions, it actually could. Overnight is a dramatic way to put it though, but the change could actually be very sudden when it comes. Now, if that day ever does come, it could drive XRP's price to levels that once sounded like pure hopium. Or maybe it won't. Maybe it will face an entirely different challenge, right? Either way, I'm going to be watching closely. I won't lie to you guys either. I'm more optimistic about XRP now than I have ever been in a very long time. It feels like we might be on the cusp of something rather big, something different from the XRP rollercoaster that we've all known. Now, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on those supply numbers. Who knows? One morning we might all wake up to a very different XRP landscape. Now, if you've enjoyed this little XRP adventure with me, do me an absolute solid favor by smashing that like button and hitting that subscribe button so you can stick around for the next video, because this adventure is only just starting.